Great.
Great. I guess I'll start. So yes, thank you, Roman. That was a great intro to neural networks. I won't go into as much depth as you have, but it will be more of a cursory glance at what kind of AI companies or startups are appearing here on the startup scene, like in London, like in the States, in California, etc. So I will take an analogy that's been given by Andrew Ng, my famous namesake. There are no relations to him. And he said that AI is like a rocket. So AI is the engine and data is the fuel. I think what Roman hasn't actually brought up is that AI requires a lot of training data. Google has of the order of millions, if not tens of millions of examples. With all the startups trying to get into the field, data is a very important asset that they find it hard to get. So I'm just going to try to advance the PowerPoint. If it's not changing, I will swap. Apologies for the technical difficulties. Yes. So Spire is a company here in London coming out of Entrepreneur First, and it's focused mainly on the data at the moment. So it's the best of human curation. It actually sends daily alerts of emerging research happening in all kinds of areas, from life sciences to engineering. And what I really like about it is it gives you an executive summary that you can read in just 10 seconds. So it's a really concise description of what they're going to talk about. And if you don't like it, you can skip. And then the next level down in terms of abstraction is a bite-sized headings. And each of the headings take 3 minutes, and they really take you through all the steps between the hypothesis to the results and what, like advances in research, what they mean. So I think that's, a great data set that one day could be used to train AI. And of course, at the moment, they're getting lots of interest from the scientific community, from the engineering community, and from the pharma industry as well.
Jeff, sorry to interrupt. A couple of people are finding it hard to hear. So could you maybe speak a little bit louder or closer to the mic, just to up the volume a little bit?
Is that better?
I think so, yeah. Thanks, Jeff.
Cheers, Jeff.
All right, great. I shall try to position my mic so you can hear me all right. So, and they do this with an in-house team of curators, but also, their curators are just like filtering through. So Spire has been able to create a great community of researchers, and they've actually been able to get all of these great guys on board by calling them heroes. I guess here, I'm not affiliated with Spire, although, Vivian is a good friend. But if anybody in the scientific community wants to contribute or, get themselves, better known, then it's a great platform. And as I was saying before, this one day, with the amount of data that they're collecting and generating, one day this will be a great training data set for one, detecting emerging trends in AI, and two, summarizing the information to the right level. So Roman highlighted a little bit about the natural language processing, and there's still lots of problems in this area. It's still a very active field of research. Computer vision. In computer vision, the AI is already superhuman. So in lots of tasks like, finding cats and dogs in images, the AI is better than us. But for NLP, it's still very hard. So now I'm going to move on to another company called Causally. So causally.com. They have a semantic AI platform, a bit similar to Sci.ai, but what they want is to extract causal relationships in unstructured text, in particular with the entities that Roman brought up before. So here, if you have, liver disease and you have hepatitis B virus, there is a causal relationship between them. And however it's mentioned in the text, whatever the surface form variation, however it's written, however, whatever kind of prose the professors and the researchers have used to write that piece of knowledge, the causal entity extraction is going to have to deal with those. So it's powering, lots of, so once you have that, and as Roman has said before, once you take all that knowledge, so, BRCA is related to the hepatitis B virus, the hepatitis B virus is related to liver cancer, You put all of that into a knowledge graph, and then you can start asking questions from that knowledge graph, like what are the factors for liver cancer in the context of diabetes, for example. And of course, there are lots of technologies. There's a lot of people, both in academia and startups, trying to solve this problem. There's Sebastian Riedel's universal schema that has gained lots of traction in terms of Google contributing technology like syntax.net, parsing parseface, that actually helps with extracting the syntax and the relationships between the word, the syntactic relationships between the words in any sentence. And Andrew McCallum has just released a new paper called Attending to All Mentioned Pairs for Full Abstract Biological Relation Extraction, and you can get that on Archive. So another startup that we're seeing at the moment is Bloom3.ai. So this is, again, Sebastian Riedel from UCL. So Roman highlighted before that you can use knowledge graphs to do reasoning, and that's something that's is an area of research. But what is really at the cutting edge of research is actually getting the neural network itself to do that reasoning. So there's lots of work, especially at DeepMind, trying to get the neural network to do differentiable computation. So actually the optimization process for training a neural network, which is like backpropagation and the use of gradients, of propagating all these gradients to reduce the error in the task that you're trying to do. But the same backpropagation, that same gradient optimization, you can use to reason as well, or to do reasoning. So Bloom3.ai's technology also allows you to do this reasoning or this differentiable inference on the host language, which is English. So you don't need a knowledge graph. So I guess if you have any questions on those, we can do that at the question and answer stage. So we've spoken a lot about text and extracting knowledge from unstructured text and scientific articles. But how about those of us in the research community who are dealing with the engineering sciences, actually producing artifacts, products, machines, robots, etc. So there's a company called uQuant, it's just been rebranded as Monolith, and they're trying to get involved in the engineering, research, and development phases. So anybody in those communities have had to deal with CAD design. So you're designing whether it's a motor, whether it's a robot arm, whether it's a grip, whether it's an actuator. And there are long cycles from actually concepting the idea in your mind, drawing it on a CAD tool, and then creating physical prototypes. It's a long process, it's a long cycle, but at the end, the prototype might not work as you want because it's all about repeatable trial and error. So what uQuant is trying to do is to actually build models that, so when you have models that require long computations, for example, here, it's computational fluid dynamics that are trying to model the aerodynamic flow of air over the body of a Formula One car. This is a very complex task, and like just changing one set of parameter, which is like this, the size of the front wing, or the length or the angle of the spoiler at the back, or any part of the surface. This actually takes a long time to simulate and to get the results out of. So, or in other case, like you might have built a few prototypes of these cars, like wooden prototypes, and you put them in the air tunnel, and you get a final data from the real world saying, this is the aerodynamic coefficient of the car, or this is a drag of the car, or it's the speed of the car. You only get that at the end of when you've produced a prototype. So here, what the AI of uQuant is trying to do is bring all that knowledge from the real world, actually try a few examples of your model and run that through your, like very heavy, intensive computational model, get the results out and find out what are the places in the parameter space do you have to try, and bring all of that information into the design stage such that you can get it right first time. So here, it's an AI that's helping you deal with, physical parameters. And I think that's really exciting as well, because I guess, like research here is not just about understanding, but it's also helping, produce, physical artifacts. And lastly, very, very quickly, I will move into, what is the state of the art in AI reasoning. Very recently, like a week ago, Chris Manning, which is the natural language team at Stanford, has released something called compositional attention networks. And the task that they're dealing with is very complicated. I was aware of this data set called Clever, but I didn't appreciate the amount of complexity and the amount of complexity and challenge in the task. So it's got the image here, which is the knowledge base. So this is the data that you want to query, right? And you have lots of objects into there. So you have cylinders, you have cubes, you have pyramids. They have different colors, they have different sizes, and they have different materials. Some are made of rubber and are quite dull, and some are very shiny, so they're made of metal. So what are some of the questions? So this is the query that you want to ask from the knowledge base. It goes like, does the block in front of the tiny yellow cylinder and the tiny thing that is to the right of the large green shiny object have the same color? So here, going back to what we were saying about extracting relationships, these words are related to each other in a very complex chain. And you have to go from the relationships between the words to the relationship in the image, in the knowledge base, and connect all of these together and then bring back the answer, which is either yes or no, or in some of the cases, it's which object it is. It's a cylinder, it's a pyramid, etc. So that is a very hard task to solve. And the way that the state of the art have achieved that before is, all these authors, all these great researchers have created networks that are designed like trees. So you can imagine why trees would be useful, because trees would be making these connections between both entities or elements in the text and entities and elements in the image, in the knowledge base. But here, Chris Manning wanted to find out a way such that you could create a really generic architecture that didn't require trees at all. So what it did, he created these compositional attention networks, and his researcher, of course, the first author. And in that question, it's so these are the compositional, so the CAN cells, and what they do is they have an ability to read data from a state, or what they call the context. The control can modify that context, and then it can write that data. So the network itself is doing it in steps, and it's jumping from one word to the other. It's storing what it needs, what is the essence, the semantic of that word, and then it has attention. I'm just checking. No, sorry, I don't have the last one. But if you go to the paper, you will see the attention patterns of this network, both on the text and on the image. And it's amazing the way that it's able to isolate them. So this system here is, it's variable length, and it can decide how many steps it needs. And it's doing all these local connection processes through this cell, which is amazing. So I think I'm running out of time at the moment. So I'm going to pass over to the next speaker, but looking forward to see if we have any questions.